My relatives ordered 16 cakes for a big celebration. 16 beautiful, elaborate cakes with names written in perfect frosting script. 16 cakes for 16 family members they deemed worthy of recognition. But as I stood there in that crowded bakery, reading name after name after name, my heart sank deeper with each cake I examined. Because there was one name missing. Mine. What do you do when your own family erases you from what should be the happiest day of your life? Please hit that like button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Subscribe for more real family drama stories. And let me know in the comments if you think what I did next was justified. Because what I'm about to tell you changed everything between me and my relatives forever. It all started 3 weeks ago when my cousin Maya called me, practically bouncing with excitement through the phone. "Amber, oh my God, you're not going to believe this!" She squealed, and I could hear her pacing around her apartment. Grandma Rose finally decided to divide up her estate. She's throwing this massive celebration dinner, and she's giving each grandchild their inheritance early as a surprise. My heart stopped. Grandma Rose was 93 years old and had been talking about getting her affairs in order for months. She owned a beautiful Victorian house in the hills, had a substantial savings account, and most importantly, possessed a collection of family heirlooms that had been passed down for generations. The antique jewelry alone was worth more than most people make in a year. "When is it?" I asked, already mentally clearing my schedule. "Saturday night at the Riverside Country Club." She's going all out, hiring caterers, a live band, even ordering personalized cakes for everyone who's getting an inheritance. It's going to be like a wedding reception, but better. I felt a surge of excitement mixed with anxiety. Grandma Rose and I had always had a complicated relationship. While she adored my cousins, Maya, Jason, David, and the others, she'd always seemed more distant with me. My mom used to say it was because I reminded her too much of my late grandfather, who apparently had been the rebellious one in the family. But still, I was family. I was her granddaughter just as much as anyone else. Did she mention... am I invited? The question felt stupid as soon as it left my mouth, but something in Maya's tone had made me uncertain. "Of course you're invited. You're family, aren't you?" Maya laughed, but there was something off about it. Something that didn't quite reach her eyes, even through the phone. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. Grandma wants everyone to dress really formally. Like evening gown formal. She wants it to feel special." I spent the next 2 weeks shopping for the perfect dress, getting my hair appointment booked, and honestly, daydreaming about what Grandma might leave me. Maybe it would be her pearl necklace, the one she always wore to church, or perhaps a portion of the house. I'd always loved that old Victorian with its wraparound porch and stained glass windows. The day before the celebration, Maya called again. "Hey, so I just wanted to give you a heads up," she said, her voice strangely careful. "The party is going to be really big. Like, bigger than we thought. Grandma invited some distant relatives we haven't seen in years, and there's going to be this whole ceremony where she presents everyone with their inheritance." "That sounds amazing," I said, pressing the phone closer to my ear as I painted my nails a soft pink color. "I can't wait to see everyone. Yeah, about that." Maya paused for so long I thought the call had dropped. "Amber, I need to tell you something, but I don't want you to get upset." My stomach clenched. "What is it?" "I was helping Grandma with some of the party planning today, and I saw the list of people getting inheritances. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "And?" I whispered. "Amber, your name wasn't on it." The nail polish brush slipped from my fingers, leaving a bright pink streak across my white comforter. "What do you mean my name wasn't on it?" "I mean, like, all of us cousins are on there. Jason's getting the antique watch collection. David's getting a trust fund. I'm getting some of the jewelry and a chunk of money for graduate school. But..." She trailed off. "But I'm not getting anything." It wasn't a question. "I'm so sorry." "Amber, I don't understand it either. I asked Grandma about it, very carefully, and she just got this weird look on her face and changed the subject. She said something about some people need to learn the value of family loyalty, but wouldn't explain what she meant. I hung up the phone and stared at myself in the mirror. What had I done wrong? I visited Grandma Rose regularly, helped her with grocery shopping when she needed it, remembered her birthday, and called her every week. Sure, I wasn't as bubbly and social as Maya, and I didn't have the successful career that Jason had built, but I was still family. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying every interaction I'd had with Grandma Rose over the past few years, searching for clues about why I might have fallen out of favor. The only thing I could think of was last Christmas when I'd brought my boyfriend Marcus to dinner. Grandma had been polite but cold, and later I heard her talking to my aunt about that girl's poor choices in men. But that couldn't be enough to cut me out of her will entirely, could it? Saturday evening came faster than I wanted it to. I put on my emerald green evening gown, the most expensive dress I'd ever bought, and drove to the Riverside Country Club with my stomach in knots. The parking lot was packed with cars, and through the large windows I could see the elegant dinner party in full swing. The moment I walked into the ballroom, I felt like I was in a movie. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in ivory linens, and there had to be at least 60 people mingling around the room. Grandma Rose sat at the head table like a queen, wearing a stunning navy blue dress and all her finest jewelry. She looked radiant for 93. Amber! Maya rushed over in a flowing red dress, looking absolutely gorgeous. I'm so glad you came. You look incredible. But even as she hugged me, I could feel the awkwardness radiating from her. She knew I didn't belong here, not really. I was the only person at this celebration who wouldn't be walking away with an inheritance. Has the ceremony started yet? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Not yet. Grandma wants to do dinner first, then the big presentation. The cakes are already set up in the back room. They're absolutely beautiful. Cakes. Right. Maya had mentioned personalized cakes for everyone receiving an inheritance. My curiosity got the better of me. Can I see them? Maya's face fell slightly. Amber, maybe we should just... I want to see them, Maya. She hesitated, then sighed. Okay, but promise me you won't make a scene? We walked through the main ballroom toward a smaller adjoining room where the desserts were displayed. And that's when I saw them. 16 magnificent cakes, each one a work of art, arranged on elegant pedestals with soft spotlighting. Each cake was different. Some were chocolate with gold frosting, others were vanilla with intricate flower designs, and a few were elaborate multi-tiered creations that belonged in a magazine. But it wasn't the beauty of the cakes that took my breath away. It was the names. In perfect cursive script, each cake bore the name of an inheritance recipient. Jason was written in gold on a rich chocolate cake. Maya adorned a stunning white cake with pink roses. David, Sarah, Michael, Christina, name after name of my cousins, second cousins, and even some relatives I barely knew. I walked slowly from cake to cake, reading each name like a knife to the heart. 16 cakes. 16 people Grandma Rose deemed worthy of her legacy. And not one of them had my name. Amber. Maya's voice was soft behind me. I turned around to face her, and I could see the pity in her eyes. That's what broke me. Not the missing cake, not the absent inheritance. It was that look of pity from my own cousin. She really hates me, doesn't she? I whispered. She doesn't hate you. I think she's just confused. Maybe she forgot, or maybe there was some kind of miscommunication. But we both knew that wasn't true. Grandma Rose's mind was sharp as a tack. She hadn't forgotten me. She had deliberately excluded me. I looked back at those 16 beautiful cakes, and something inside me snapped. Not with anger, not yet, but with a kind of cold, calculating clarity I'd never felt before. Maya, I said quietly, I need you to do me a favor. Anything. I need you to distract Grandma Rose for about 10 minutes. Can you do that? She looked at me suspiciously. Why? Just trust me, please. Maya studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. But Amber, whatever you're thinking of doing, 10 minutes, I repeated. After she left, I stood alone in that room with 16 cakes that represented everything I wasn't to my family. 16 symbols of my worthlessness in Grandma Rose's eyes. And that's when the plan formed in my mind. It was petty, it was dramatic, and it was probably going to destroy my relationship with my entire family forever. But in that moment, I didn't care. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. If I was going to do this, I wanted to document every second of it. Then I walked over to the first cake, Jason's chocolate masterpiece with his name written in gold frosting. I placed my finger at the beginning of the J and slowly, deliberately, dragged it through his name until it was completely illegible. The frosting came away on my finger, sweet and rich. Then I moved to Maya's cake. My cousin who had pitied me, who had looked at me like I was some kind of charity case. I dragged my finger through the M, then the A, then each letter until her name was nothing but a smear of pink frosting. One by one, I went to each cake and systematically destroyed every single name. David's elegant script became a mess of brown frosting. Sarah's delicate lettering turned into abstract smears. Michael, Christina, Robert, Jennifer. I erased them all. But I didn't stop there. I took my phone and, using the voice memo app, began to record. "Hi, everyone," I said quietly, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "This is Amber, the granddaughter who apparently doesn't exist. The one who wasn't worth including in Grandma Rose's big inheritance celebration. The one who doesn't have a cake with her name on it." I walked slowly around the room, filming each destroyed cake. These are the cakes for the chosen grandchildren. The ones who matter. The ones who are worthy of being remembered and rewarded for their family loyalty. I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice anymore, but here's the thing about being invisible. It means people don't notice when you're doing things they might not. Like. I stopped recording and looked around the room one more time. 16 beautiful cakes, all of them now nameless. All of them ruined, just like my relationship with this family. But I wasn't done yet. I walked back into the main ballroom where the dinner was winding down. Grandma Rose was standing at the podium, tapping her champagne glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends," she began, her voice strong and clear. "Tonight is a very special night for me. At my age, I've learned that there's no point in waiting until I'm gone to share my blessings with the people I love most." The room fell silent, everyone hanging on her words. "I've spent months thinking about each of you, about your contributions to this family, about your character and your values, and I've decided to distribute my estate now. While I can see the joy it brings to your faces." I stood at the back of the room, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. In a few minutes, we'll move to the dessert room where I've arranged for personalized cakes for each of my chosen heirs. It will be my pleasure to present each of you with your inheritance alongside your special cake. The room erupted in excited murmurs and applause. Grandma Rose beamed, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. That's when I stepped forward. "Grandma Rose," I called out, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "Before we do that, I have something I'd like to share with everyone." She looked at me with surprise, and I could see confusion flickering across her face. "Amber, dear, this isn't really the time." "Oh, I think it's the perfect time," I said, walking slowly toward the front of the room. Every eye in the place was on me now. "See, I just spent some time in the dessert room, looking at those beautiful personalized cakes you ordered." Grandma Rose's face began to change as she realized where this was going. 16 gorgeous cakes for 16 special family members. Each one with a name written in perfect frosting. Each one representing someone you've deemed worthy of your love and your legacy. I reached the front of the room and turned to face the crowd. I could see Maya in the audience, her face pale with horror. Jason looked confused. David was frowning. "But you know what I noticed about those 16 cakes?" I continued, my voice getting stronger with each word. "There's something missing from them now. Something very important." "Amber, stop this right now," Grandma Rose hissed, but I could see panic beginning to creep into her eyes. "The names," I said, addressing the room. "All those beautiful names you had so carefully written on each cake. They're gone now. Every single one of them." The silence in the room was deafening. Because if I'm not good enough to have my name on a cake, If I'm not worthy of being included in your precious family legacy, then I decided that maybe no one should have their names on those cakes. And that's when the chaos began. Grandma Rose went white as a sheet and actually swayed on her feet. Someone, I think it was my Uncle Robert, rushed to steady her. Maya shot up from her chair with a look of absolute horror on her face. "Amber, what did you do?" she whispered, but her voice carried in the silent room. "What I had to do," I replied calmly. "What anyone would do when they're made to feel invisible by their own family. You ruined the cakes?" Jason's voice cut through the room, filled with disbelief. "I liberated them," I corrected. "I freed them from the burden of carrying names that apparently represent something I'll never be good enough to achieve." Grandma Rose finally found her voice, and when she spoke, it was with a fury I'd never heard from her before. "How dare you?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "How dare you destroy something that was meant to celebrate the people I love most?" "The people you love most," I repeated, feeling tears starting to burn in my eyes despite my attempt to stay strong. "Right. And where exactly do I fit into that category, Grandma? Because I've been trying to figure that out for weeks now." "You want to know why you're not getting an inheritance?" Her voice rose, and suddenly she didn't seem like a frail 93-year-old woman anymore. She seemed like an angry matriarch ready to destroy anyone who challenged her authority. "You want to know why your name isn't on one of those cakes?" "Yes," I said simply. "I do." The entire room held its breath. "Because you have never, not once, shown this family the respect and loyalty it deserves. You bring inappropriate boyfriends to family dinners. You miss important events because you have other commitments. You question my decisions and argue with your elders. And now tonight, you've proven exactly who you are by destroying something beautiful out of pure spite." Her words hit me like physical blows, and I could feel my carefully maintained composure starting to crack. "Inappropriate boyfriends?" I repeated. "You mean Marcus? The man I love? The one you decided wasn't good enough because he doesn't have a college degree? A man who has been to prison, Amber. A man with a criminal record who works at a garage." The room gasped. I felt my face burn with shame and fury. He made a mistake when he was 19 years old. He spent the last 8 years rebuilding his life, and he's one of the most honest, hardworking people I know. "And that's exactly the problem," Grandma Rose shot back. "You have no standards, no understanding of what it means to uphold a family's reputation, no sense of the legacy you're supposed to carry forward." "What legacy?" I shouted, and I could hear my voice breaking. "The legacy of judging people? The legacy of cutting out family members who don't meet your impossible standards? The legacy of making your own granddaughter feel like she's worth nothing? You are worth nothing!" The words exploded out of her with such venom that several people in the room actually stepped backward. "You have contributed nothing to this family except disappointment and embarrassment." The silence that followed was complete and devastating. I stood there, looking at this woman who had helped raise me, who had taught me to bake cookies and told me bedtime stories, and I realized that she meant every word. In her eyes, I truly was worth nothing. But instead of breaking down, instead of running away like she probably expected, I felt something cold and powerful settle in my chest. "You're right," I said quietly. "I haven't contributed anything to this family. But tonight, that changes." I pulled out my phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. "See, while I was in that dessert room, ruining those precious cakes with all your precious names on them, I recorded a little video. A video of me explaining exactly how it feels to be the forgotten granddaughter. The one who isn't worth including. The one whose grandmother thinks she's worth nothing." Grandma Rose's eyes widened with something that looked like fear. "And in about 30 seconds, that video is going to be posted to every social media platform I have. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, everywhere. Along with the story of tonight's celebration and what really happens in the perfect Rose family when someone doesn't live up to expectations." "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Watch me." My finger hovered over the post button on my phone, and I could see panic spreading across faces throughout the room. These people cared about their reputations, their social standing, their image in the community. The idea of having their family drama broadcast to the world was their worst nightmare. But I had already lost everything. What did I have left to lose? Amber, please! Maya stepped forward, her voice desperate. Don't do this. Let's just talk about it. We can figure this out. Figure what out? I asked. How to make me worthy of being included. How to change who I am so I meet Grandma's standards. How to pretend that what just happened didn't completely destroy any love I might have had left for this family. I looked around the room at faces I'd known my entire life. My aunts and uncles, my cousins, family friends who had watched me grow up. And every single one of them was looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was something dangerous that had wandered into their perfect celebration. You know what the saddest part is? I continued. I actually thought tonight would be different. I thought maybe Grandma Rose had changed her mind about me. I bought a new dress. I got my hair done. I practiced what I would say when she gave me whatever small token she'd decided I was worth. I laughed, and it sounded hollow even to my own ears. But there was never going to be anything for me, was there? This whole celebration, these 16 cakes, this big ceremony. It was all designed to make it crystal clear that I don't belong here. That I never did. That's not true, someone said. I think it was my Aunt Linda. But her voice was weak and unconvincing. Isn't it? I challenged. Then why didn't anyone tell me I wasn't getting an inheritance? Why did you all let me show up here tonight thinking I was part of this celebration? Why did you let me humiliate myself by being the only person in this room without a cake? The silence stretched on, and I had my answer. You know what? I'm done, I said. And suddenly I felt exhausted. I'm done begging for scraps of affection from people who will never think I'm good enough. I'm done trying to prove myself to a family that's already decided I'm worthless. I held up my phone one more time. But before I go, I want you all to remember something. Tonight you didn't just lose me. You showed everyone in this room exactly who you really are. You showed them what happens when someone doesn't fit your perfect little mold. My finger was still hovering over the post button, and I could see Grandma Rose actually trembling with rage and fear. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm going to walk out of here right now. I'm never coming back to another family gathering. I'm never calling to check on anyone or pretending that we're a happy, loving family. And this video? I paused for dramatic effect. Well, that depends on what happens next. What do you want? Grandma Rose's voice was barely audible. I looked at her, this tiny, fierce woman who had controlled our family for decades, and I realized something that surprised me. I didn't hate her. I pitied her. I don't want anything from you anymore, I said softly. You can keep your money, your house, your jewelry. You can give it all to your chosen grandchildren who've earned your love through their perfect behavior and appropriate boyfriends. I started walking toward the exit, and the crowd parted before me like I was carrying a disease. But I want everyone in this room to remember this moment, I called over my shoulder, because someday, when you're all sitting around talking about family values and loyalty and love, I want you to remember the night you drove away one of your own because she wasn't good enough. I reached the door and turned back one final time. And Grandma Rose? The next time you order personalized cakes for a family celebration, you might want to make sure you've actually invited everyone in the family. Because you never know who might show up anyway. I walked out into the cool night air, and for the first time in weeks I felt like I could breathe. But as I sat in my car in that country club parking lot, watching the shocked faces through the windows, I realized that what I had just done would change everything forever. There would be consequences. There would be fallout. And there were still secrets about my family that I didn't know yet. Secrets that would make tonight's drama look like a minor disagreement. Because as I was about to discover, the real reason I wasn't included in Grandma Rose's will had nothing to do with Marcus, or my behavior, or my lack of family loyalty. It had to do with something much bigger. Something that had been hidden from me my entire life. And when I finally learned the truth, it would destroy not just my relationship with my family, but everything I thought I knew about myself. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The confrontation kept replaying in my mind like a broken record. The look of pure hatred in Grandma Rose's eyes. The way my entire family had stood there, watching me fall apart, saying nothing. When I got to my apartment, Marcus was waiting for me on the couch, wearing the nice shirt I'd picked out for him earlier that day. He'd planned to come to the celebration as my date, but I'd convinced him to stay home after Maya's warning phone call. Now, looking at his kind, concerned face, I was grateful he hadn't witnessed my complete humiliation. "How did it go?" he asked, standing up the moment he saw my expression. "Baby, what happened?" I collapsed into his arms and finally let myself break down. Through my tears, I told him everything, about the missing cake, about the destroyed names, about Grandma Rose's cruel words in the video I'd threatened to post. "She called you worthless?" Marcus's voice was tight with anger. "Her own granddaughter?" "She wasn't wrong, though," I whispered against his chest. "I don't have a college degree like Maya. I'm not successful like Jason. I work at a bookstore and live in a tiny apartment. And I'm dating an ex-con who works at a garage." Marcus pulled back to look at me, his hands cupping my face. "Don't you dare let that bitter old woman make you believe you're worth less than anyone else. You're kind, you're intelligent, you work hard, and you have more integrity in your little finger than that entire family combined. But what if she's right? What if I really am just the disappointment of the family? Then they don't deserve you," he said firmly. "And honestly, after what you've told me about tonight, I don't think you should ever go back." I wanted to agree with him, wanted to just write off my entire family and move on. But something was nagging at me. Something about the way Grandma Rose had looked when she called me worthless. Like she was trying to convince herself as much as she was trying to hurt me. Around midnight, my phone started buzzing with text messages. The first few were from Maya. "Amber, please call me. We need to talk. I know you're angry, but there's something you don't understand. Please don't post that video. Not yet. Give me a chance to explain." Then came messages from other cousins, aunts, uncles, all of them begging me to call them, to not go public with what had happened. But it was the final message, sent at 12:47 a.m., that made my blood run cold. It was from my Aunt Linda, my mom's sister. The message was short, but it changed everything. "Amber, meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Riverside Diner. Come alone. There are things about your family that you don't know. Things that explain everything that happened tonight. Please don't make any decisions until we talk." I showed the message to Marcus, and he frowned. "It could be a trap," he said. "They might just want to get you somewhere private so they can talk you out of posting that video." "Or," I said slowly, "there really is something I don't know. Something that would explain why Grandma Rose hates me so much." The next morning, I arrived at Riverside Diner 15 minutes early and chose a booth in the back corner. Linda walked in exactly at 10 a.m., looking like she hadn't slept. She was usually the most put-together person in our family. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect clothes. Today, she looked haggard and nervous. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "After last night, I'm not really in the mood to hear more about what a disappointment I am." Linda winced. "What Rose said to you was cruel and unfair. But, Amber, there's something you need to understand. The reason you weren't included in her will, it's not because of your boyfriend or your job or anything you've done wrong." "Then what is it?" Linda stared down at her hands for a long moment. "It's because you're not actually her granddaughter." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What are you supposed to mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. Rose isn't your grandmother. Your mother wasn't her daughter." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, for her to tell me this was some kind of sick joke. But her face was deadly serious. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Mom grew up in that house. She talked about her childhood there all the time. Your mother grew up in that house, yes. But she wasn't Rose's biological daughter. She was adopted." The diner suddenly felt like it was spinning around me. "Adopted?" "When your mom was 3 years old, her birth parents died in a car accident. She had no other family, so Rose and your grandfather took her in and raised her as their own. But they never legally adopted her. And Rose never let anyone forget that your mother wasn't her real daughter. My mind was reeling. But why didn't anyone ever tell me? Because your mother made us all promise never to tell you. She said she wanted you to grow up feeling like you belonged, like you were a real part of the family. She was trying to protect you from exactly what happened last night. So, I'm not actually related to any of you, I said slowly, the pieces finally starting to fit together. Not by blood, no, but that never mattered to most of us. Your mother was our sister in every way that counted. And you've always been our niece, our cousin, our family, but not to Grandma Rose. Linda shook her head sadly. Rose has old-fashioned ideas about bloodlines and family legacy. In her mind, only real family members deserve to inherit the family wealth. She's always resented your mother for not being her biological child, and she's extended that resentment to you. I felt like I was going to be sick. So all those years of trying to earn her love, trying to prove I was worthy, none of it mattered because I was never going to be good enough. I'm so sorry, Amber. We all knew this day would come eventually, but we hoped maybe Rose would change her mind. Maybe she would see past her prejudices and realize that family is about more than just DNA. Does everyone know? The older generation does. Your cousins don't. Maya, Jason, David, they all think you're their cousin just like they always have. Rose insisted we keep it that way to avoid complications. I laughed bitterly. Complications? Right. It would be complicated for them to know their grandmother is a heartless bigot who only loves children with the right bloodline. Amber, no, I said, standing up abruptly. I can't do this. I can't sit here and pretend this is okay. She let me grow up thinking I was part of this family, knowing the whole time that she was planning to cut me out the moment she died. Where are you going? I was already walking toward the door. To post that video. And then, I'm going to tell everyone the truth about the Perfect Rose family and their dirty little secret. Linda jumped up and followed me outside. Please wait. Think about what you're doing. If you expose this, it won't just hurt Rose. It'll destroy your cousins, your aunts and uncles, people who have always loved you and accepted you as family. People who lied to me my entire life. I shot back. People who were trying to protect you. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Protect me from what? The truth? From knowing that the woman I spent 28 years trying to please was never going to love me no matter what I did? From knowing that you don't legally have any claim to the family name or the family legacy? From feeling like an outsider in your own family? I already feel like an outsider, I screamed, not caring that people in the parking lot were staring. I've felt like an outsider my entire life because Rose made sure I knew I didn't measure up. At least now I know why. I got in my car and drove straight home, my mind racing with everything Linda had told me. Marcus was at work, so I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my phone. The video was still there, ready to be posted. But now I had so much more to add to the story. That's when my phone rang. It was Maya. Amber, please tell me you haven't posted anything yet, she said the moment I answered. Why shouldn't I? I asked coldly. Because there are things you don't understand? Family things that are complicated. You mean like the fact that I'm adopted? That I'm not actually your cousin? That Grandma Rose has been planning to cut me out of her will since the day I was born because I don't have the right DNA? The silence on the other end of the line was telling. You knew, I said. You've known all along. Amber, please. How long have you known? Another pause. Since I was 16? My mom told me after I kept asking why Grandma Rose was always colder to you than to the rest of us. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. 16. You've known for 12 years and you never said anything. We were protecting you. Stop saying that. I exploded. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourselves. You were protecting your precious family image and your inheritance and your relationship with Grandma Rose. That's not true, isn't it? Tell me, Maya. When you found out I wasn't getting an inheritance, did you argue with Grandma Rose? Did you tell her it wasn't fair? Did you threaten to refuse your own inheritance in solidarity with your cousin? The silence stretched on, and I had my answer. I thought so, I said quietly. You felt bad for me, but not bad enough to actually do anything about it. What was I supposed to do? Rose had made up her mind. You were supposed to treat me like family instead of like a charity case you all had to manage. I hung up the phone and immediately started typing a new post to go along with my video. But as my fingers moved across the keyboard, my anger began to shift into something else, something colder and more calculating. Because I realized that posting the video and exposing the family secret, while satisfying, would only hurt me in the long run. I would be labeled as the bitter, vindictive outsider who destroyed a family out of spite. But there was another way to handle this. A way that would give me real power instead of just revenge. I deleted the post I'd been writing and made a phone call instead. Rose family residence, came the familiar voice of Mrs. Chen. Grandma Rose's housekeeper. Hi, Mrs. Chen. It's Amber. Is my grandmother available? Oh, hello, dear. Yes, she's here, but she's not feeling very well after last night. Perhaps you could call back another time? Actually, this is urgent. Could you please tell her that I have something very important to discuss with her? Something about family legacy and bloodlines. I think she'll want to hear what I have to say. There was a pause. Then Mrs. Chen said, Hold on, please. A few minutes later, Grandma Rose's voice came on the line, cold and sharp as a blade. What do you want, Amber? Hello, grandmother, I said, emphasizing the word with deliberate irony. I had an interesting conversation with Aunt Linda this morning. She told me some fascinating family history. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. I see, she said carefully. And what exactly do you plan to do with this? Information? That depends, I said, settling back in my chair. On whether you're interested in making a deal. A deal? Here's the thing, Rose. I know now that you never plan to include me in your will because you don't consider me real family. Fair enough. But what I don't think you've considered is what happens when the truth comes out. And it will come out, one way or another. Are you threatening me? I'm offering you a choice. See, I still have that video from last night. The one where I explained to everyone how it feels to be the forgotten granddaughter. But now I have so much more to add to the story. I could tell everyone about the adoption secret you've been keeping for 25 years. I could explain exactly why you excluded me from your will. I could let the whole world know that the beloved Rose family matriarch is actually a woman who can't love a child unless they share her DNA. You wouldn't dare, wouldn't I? What do I have to lose at this point? You've made it clear that I'm not really part of this family anyway. There was a long silence, and I could practically hear her mind working. What do you want? She asked finally. I want what I should have gotten in the first place. I want my fair share of the inheritance. Not as your granddaughter, but as the child of a woman who lived in your house for 25 years and called you mother. Absolutely not. Then I guess we don't have a deal, I said cheerfully. I'll give you until tomorrow to think about it. After that, I'm posting everything. The video, the family secret, all of it. And Rose? When your precious bloodline grandchildren find out you've been lying to them their entire lives about who I really am, how do you think they're going to react? I could hear her breathing getting heavier. You think Maya and Jason and David are going to be happy when they learn you excluded me not because of my behavior or my boyfriend, but because you're a bigot who only loves children with the right pedigree? You think they're going to look at their inheritance the same way when they know it was built on lies and prejudice? They'll understand, will they? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've put them in an impossible position. Either they accept their inheritance knowing it was gained through discrimination against their adopted cousin, or they give it up to maintain their integrity. Either way, you lose. The silence stretched on for almost a full minute. How much? She asked finally. 1/17 of everything, I said. The same share each of your real grandchildren is getting. That's impossible. I've already had the will drawn up, then have it redrawn. You're not dead yet, Rose. You can change your mind. And in return? In return, your family secret stays secret. The video never gets posted, and I disappear from your life forever. You get to keep your perfect family image, and I get compensation for 28 years of emotional manipulation. Another long pause. I need time to think about this. You have until tomorrow at 6 p.m., I said. After that, the offer expires and I tell the world everything. I hung up the phone and sat back, my heart pounding. I'd just blackmailed my own grandmother, or the woman I'd thought was my grandmother. But for the first time since the previous night, I felt like I had some control over the situation. Marcus came home from work an hour later to find me pacing around the apartment like a caged animal. "You look like you're planning something," he said, setting down his lunchbox and studying my face. "What happened?" I told him about Linda's revelation, about Maya knowing the truth all along, about my phone call with Rose. "You blackmailed her?" he asked, and I couldn't tell if he was impressed or horrified. "I gave her a business proposition," I corrected. "She can pay me what I'm worth, or she can deal with the consequences of her prejudice becoming public knowledge." "And you think she'll agree?" "I think she cares more about her reputation than she does about her principles. We'll find out tomorrow." That night I barely slept. I kept running through different scenarios in my mind. What if Rose called my bluff? What if she decided to cut off all the grandchildren rather than give me anything? What if the family rallied around her and painted me as the villain? But when I woke up the next morning, I felt calmer than I had in weeks. Because I realized that no matter what Rose decided, I had already won something important. I finally knew the truth about why I'd never felt like I belonged. And I knew that the problem wasn't with me. It was with a bitter old woman who couldn't see past bloodlines to the person I actually was. At 5:30 p.m., my phone rang. "Amber!" Rose's voice was clipped and cold. "I've spoken with my lawyer. He's drawing up a new will that includes a provision for you. You'll receive a one-time payment of $50,000. "That's not what we agreed on," I said immediately. I said 1/17 of everything, not some token payment. $50,000 is more than generous for someone who isn't actually family. And there it is, I said. "Your true feelings coming out. No deal, Rose. I want my full share, or I want the world to know what kind of person you really are. You're making a mistake. No, I'm making a choice. The same choice you made 28 years ago when you decided an innocent little girl wasn't worthy of your love because she didn't share your DNA." I was about to hang up when she spoke again, and her voice was different. Smaller. "Wait." I waited. 1/17, she said finally. "But I have conditions." "I'm listening." "You sign a non-disclosure agreement. You never speak publicly about this family or what happened at the celebration. And you never contact any of us again. Ever." I thought about it for a moment. It meant giving up any hope of a relationship with Maya, with my aunts and uncles, with the cousins who didn't know the truth. It meant cutting myself off completely from the only family I'd ever known. But then I remembered the pity in Maya's eyes, the silence of my relatives when Rose called me worthless, the years of feeling like I was never quite good enough. "Deal," I said. "My lawyer will contact you tomorrow with the paperwork." The line went dead. I sat there in my quiet apartment, holding my phone, and realized that I felt empty. Not sad. Not angry, not relieved. Just empty. I had gotten what I wanted, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of everything I'd thought my life was. Marcus found me there an hour later, still staring at my phone. "So?" he asked. She agreed. "I'm getting my inheritance, and then I'm never seeing any of them again." He sat down next to me and took my hand. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know," I said honestly. I thought I would feel vindicated or satisfied or something. But mostly I just feel tired. "You did what you had to do," he said. "They forced your hand. Did they? Or did I just prove that I really am the vindictive, spiteful person Rose always thought I was?" "Hey!" Marcus turned to face me. "Don't let her get in your head like that. You didn't destroy this family, Amber. They destroyed themselves with their lies and their prejudice and their inability to love someone unconditionally. All you did was refuse to be a victim. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that I had made the right choice, that I had stood up for myself in the face of injustice. But as I sat there that night, thinking about the family I would never see again and the money that would never fill the hole they'd left behind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had broken. Not just in my relationship with them, but in who I was as a person. Because the girl who had walked into that country club 2 days ago, hoping for acceptance and love, would never have blackmailed her own grandmother, would never have been willing to destroy an entire family's reputation for money. The question was, had I become someone stronger, or had I become someone I wouldn't recognize? And as I was about to discover, the answer to that question would determine not just my future, but the future of everyone whose lives I was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Something had gone terribly wrong, and I was about to learn that some secrets are too dangerous to keep and too dangerous to expose. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Something had gone terribly wrong, and I was about to learn that some secrets are too dangerous to keep and too dangerous to expose. My phone was buzzing again as I picked it up, my heart racing. The caller ID showed Maya's name, and against my better judgment, I answered. "Amber, thank God." Her voice was panicked, barely recognizable. "Have you seen the news? Please tell me you haven't seen the news." "What are you talking about?" I asked, already reaching for my laptop. "Grandma Rose. She's in the hospital. She had a heart attack last night right after you called her. Amber, she's in a coma." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What?" "The doctors don't know if she's going to wake up. And Amber, there's something else. Something terrible." I was already Googling, my fingers shaking as I typed Rose family heart attack into the search bar. What I saw made my blood run cold. Family patriarch in critical condition after inheritance scandal, read the headline from the local news website. Below it was a photo of paramedics wheeling a stretcher into an ambulance outside Rose's Victorian house. "How did the news find out?" I whispered. "We don't know. Someone leaked the story about the celebration, about what happened with the cakes, about the family fighting over the inheritance. It's everywhere, Amber. Every local news station, social media, the gossip blogs. They're calling it the cake scandal and the grandmother's revenge." I scrolled down, reading the article with growing horror. The reporter had gotten hold of details that only someone at the party could have provided. They knew about the 16 cakes, about my confrontation with Rose, about the video I'd threatened to post. But they didn't have the adoption secret. Not yet. "Maya, I need you to listen to me very carefully," I said. "I didn't leak this story." "I know you didn't," she said quietly. "The reporter is quoting someone who was at the party. Someone who heard everything that happened. Who? We don't know. But Amber, that's not the worst part." I closed my eyes, bracing myself. "What's the worst part?" "The reporter is digging deeper. They're asking questions about why you were excluded from the inheritance. They're looking into family records, birth certificates, adoption documents. If they find out the truth about your adoption..." She didn't need to finish. "If the adoption secret came out now, while Rose was fighting for her life in the hospital, it would destroy what was left of the family. And I would be blamed for all of it." "I need to see her," I said suddenly. "What?" "Amber, no. The family doesn't want you at the hospital. After what happened, Maya, I made a deal with her. If she dies before she can change her will, I get nothing. But more importantly, she's lying in that hospital bed because of our conversation. Because I pushed her too far. This isn't your fault, isn't it?" I laughed bitterly. I blackmailed a 93-year-old woman. I threatened to destroy her family's reputation if she didn't give me money. And now she's dying, and everyone's going to blame me for it. I hung up the phone and immediately called Marcus at work. "I need you to come home," I said the moment he answered. "Rose is in the hospital and everything is falling apart." He was home within 20 minutes. And I filled him in on everything while we both stared at the growing number of news articles about our family drama. "The comments section is brutal," he said, scrolling through his phone. "People are calling you everything from a gold digger to a sociopath." "Because that's what I am," I said flatly. "I blackmailed a dying woman for money." "You stood up for yourself against a family that treated you like garbage for your entire life," he corrected. "There's a difference. Is there? Because right now, looking at all this, I'm not so sure." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Janet Morrison from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about the Rose family inheritance scandal. We can offer compensation for your story. Then another. Hi, Amber. This is TMZ. We're prepared to offer $50,000 for an exclusive interview about your grandmother's discriminatory will. And another. Amber Rose, we're with Inside Edition. We understand you have video footage of the incident. We'd like to make an offer. They're treating this like entertainment, I said, showing Marcus the messages. My family is falling apart and these vultures want to pay me to tell them all the gory details. Don't answer any of them, Marcus said firmly. This will blow over. It always does, but I knew it wouldn't blow over. Not this time. Because I had made too many enemies, revealed too many secrets, hurt too many people. And now Rose was dying. And I would forever be known as the granddaughter who broke her grandmother's heart. Around noon, my phone rang again. This time it was my Uncle Robert, Rose's oldest son. Amber. His voice was cold as ice. We need to talk. Uncle Robert, I heard about Rose. I'm so sorry. Save it. Meet me at the hospital in 1 hour. Come alone. The line went dead. Marcus didn't want me to go, but I knew I had to face this. I had to see Rose, even if it was the last time. And I had to try to fix what I had broken, if it wasn't too late. The hospital parking lot was crawling with news vans. I pulled my hood up and tried to walk quickly toward the entrance, but a reporter spotted me. Amber Rose, can you comment on your grandmother's condition? Is it true you threatened to expose family secrets for money? Do you have any regrets about what happened at the celebration? I pushed through them without saying a word and made it to the elevator. Uncle Robert was waiting for me on the cardiac care floor, along with my Aunt Linda and another man I didn't recognize. This is James Morrison, Robert said, nodding toward the stranger. Rose's lawyer. My stomach dropped. Her lawyer? We need to discuss the situation, James said. Is there somewhere private we can talk? Linda led us to a small conference room down the hall from Rose's room. Through the window, I could see my cousins and other relatives sitting in the waiting area. None of them looked at me. Amber, James began once we were seated. I understand you had a conversation with Mrs. Rose yesterday regarding changes to her will. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She called me immediately after speaking with you and instructed me to draw up a new will that would include a provision for you. However, before I could complete the document, she suffered her cardiac event. So there's no new will, I said. That's correct. If Mrs. Rose passes away, her current will remains in effect. The will that excludes you entirely, Robert leaned forward. But that's not why we're here. Then why are we here? Linda looked at the lawyer, who nodded. Because, she said quietly, Rose told us about your arrangement, about what you threatened to reveal if she didn't comply with your demands. My mouth went dry. What exactly did she tell you? Everything, Robert said. About the adoption. About your threats to expose the family secret. About the video you recorded. I looked around the table at 3 faces that were staring at me with a mixture of disgust and something that looked almost like fear. Here's the situation, James continued. Mrs. Rose is not expected to recover. The doctors believe she may have days, possibly hours. When she passes, the media attention on this family is going to intensify. The reporters are already asking questions about why you were excluded from the inheritance. So, Robert said, we know that you have information that could destroy this family, information that would devastate your cousins, ruin reputations, and turn Rose's funeral into a media circus. What are you asking me to do? We're asking you to sign this, James said, sliding a document across the table. It's a non-disclosure agreement with some modifications. I picked up the papers and started reading. What I saw made my hand shake. You want me to sign away my right to ever speak about this family publicly? I said. In exchange for nothing? In exchange for us not pressing charges, Robert said coldly. Charges for what? Extortion, blackmail, elder abuse. Take your pick, I stared at him. You're threatening to have me arrested? We're offering you a choice, Linda said. and her voice was sadder than Robert's but just as firm. Sign the agreement and walk away quietly, or face the legal and social consequences of what you've done. What I've done? I stood up, anger finally overriding my guilt and fear. What about what all of you have done? What about lying to me my entire life? What about letting Rose treat me like garbage because I wasn't her biological granddaughter? That doesn't give you the right to blackmail an elderly woman, James said. Regardless of the family circumstances, extortion is a felony. I wasn't extorting her. I was negotiating for what should have been mine in the first place. That's not how the law sees it, Robert said, and it's definitely not how the media will see it when we tell them that you threatened a 93-year-old woman's reputation unless she gave you money. I looked around the table again and realized that I was trapped. If I signed the agreement, I would get nothing and be forced to stay silent about everything that had happened. If I didn't sign, they would paint me as a criminal who blackmailed a dying woman. I need time to think about this, I said. You have until tonight, Robert said. Rose's condition is deteriorating rapidly. If she passes away and you haven't signed this agreement, we'll be forced to take legal action. And if I do sign it? Then you disappear, Linda said. Quietly. No media interviews, no social media posts, no attempts to contact any family members. You go back to your life and pretend none of this ever happened. I left the hospital feeling more defeated than I had ever felt in my life. The reporters were still waiting outside, but this time I was too numb to care about their questions. I drove home in a daze and found Marcus pacing around our living room. How did it go? He asked the moment I walked in. I told him about the ultimatum, about the threats of criminal charges, about how completely I had been outmaneuvered by my own family. They can't actually have you arrested, he said. Can they? I don't know. Maybe. I did threaten Rose. I did demand money from her. A good prosecutor could probably make a case that it was extortion. But you were fighting for what was rightfully yours. Was it, though? I sank down onto the couch. I'm not actually Rose's granddaughter. I have no legal claim to her estate. Maybe I really was just trying to steal money from an old woman. Marcus sat down next to me and took my hands. Listen to me. You are not a criminal. You are not a bad person. You're someone who was hurt and angry and who made some questionable choices because you were pushed to your breaking point. But look where those choices led, I said. Rose is dying. My family hates me, and I'm about to be cut out of their lives forever whether I sign their agreement or not. Then maybe that's for the best, Marcus said quietly. Maybe it's time to accept that these people were never really your family anyway. I spent the rest of the afternoon staring at the non-disclosure agreement, weighing my options. I could sign it and walk away with nothing but my silence. Or I could refuse to sign it and face the possibility of criminal charges while watching my family's reputation get destroyed in the media. Neither choice felt like winning. At 6 p.m., my phone rang. It was Maya, and she was crying. Amber, she's gone, she sobbed. Grandma Rose passed away 20 minutes ago. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Maya, I'm so sorry. Are you? She asked. And suddenly her tears turned to anger. Are you really sorry? Because this is what you wanted, isn't it? Now you can tell your story to the reporters without worrying about her fighting back. That's not what I wanted. I never wanted her to die, didn't you? You pushed her until her heart gave out, and now she's dead. And you're going to be rich and famous from selling the story of how mean she was to you. The line went dead, and I realized that my last connection to the family I'd grown up with had just been severed forever. I called the lawyer's office and left a message saying I would sign the agreement. What was the point of fighting anymore? Rose was dead, the family was destroyed, and anything I said now would just make everything worse. But when I woke up the next morning, something had changed. Maybe it was seeing Rose's obituary in the newspaper, with its glowing description of her as a beloved matriarch and devoted grandmother. Maybe it was reading the online comments from people who had never met her, calling her a saint and me a monster. Or maybe it was the text message I received from Jason, my cousin who had always been kind to me, telling me I was no longer welcome at Rose's funeral. Whatever it was, I realized that staying silent wasn't going to protect anyone. It was just going to let the lie continue. It was going to let Rose be remembered as a loving grandmother instead of the bitter, prejudiced woman she actually was. And it was going to let my family pretend that they were victims instead of co-conspirators in a decades-long deception. I called James, Morrison's office, and told his secretary I had changed my mind about the agreement. Then I called Channel 7. News, this is Janet Morrison, came the familiar voice from my text messages. Janet, this is Amber Rose. I'm ready to tell my story. The interview was scheduled for that afternoon. Marcus tried to talk me out of it, warned me about the legal consequences, reminded me that I would be burning every bridge I had left. But I was done caring about bridges. I was done protecting people who had never protected me. Janet Morrison was a sharp-featured woman in her 40s who clearly smelled blood in the water. She set up the cameras in our living room and spent 20 minutes getting the lighting just right. "Are you ready?" she asked, settling into the chair across from me. I thought about Rose lying in her hospital bed, about the family gathered around her bedside who had never once asked if I was okay. I thought about 28 years of feeling like I wasn't good enough, of trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's start from the beginning," Janet said, and the camera's red light blinked on. "Tell me about the night of your grandmother's celebration." And so I did. I told her everything. About the 16 cakes and the missing name. About the confrontation with Rose and the cruel things she'd said. About discovering the adoption secret and the decades of lies. About the blackmail and the ultimatum and Rose's fatal heart attack. I told her about a family that chose bloodlines over love. About a woman who couldn't see past genetics to the person I actually was. About relatives who were more concerned with protecting their inheritance than protecting me. "Do you have any regrets about how you handled the situation?" Janet asked toward the end of the interview. I thought about it for a long moment. "I regret that Rose died thinking I hated her," I said finally. Because I didn't. I was hurt and angry, but I never hated her. I regret that my cousins had to find out the truth this way, in the worst possible circumstances. And I regret that this family, for all its flaws, is now destroyed forever. But do you regret fighting for your inheritance? Do you regret exposing the truth? I looked directly into the camera, thinking about everyone who would see this interview. My former family, the reporters, the strangers who had been following this story and judging me without knowing the facts. "No," I said. "I don't regret telling the truth. I spent 28 years living a lie, trying to earn love from people who had already decided I wasn't worthy of it. I'm done apologizing for not being someone I could never be." The interview aired that evening on the 6 o'clock news. By 8 p.m., it was trending on social media. By 10 p.m., it had been picked up by national news outlets. The response was mixed. Some people called me brave for speaking out against family discrimination. Others called me a vengeful opportunist who destroyed a dying woman's last days. The comments section was brutal, but for the first time, I didn't care what strangers thought of me. What I did care about were the messages that started coming in from other people who had similar stories. Adopted children who had been treated as second-class family members. People who had been cut out of wills for not meeting impossible standards. Men and women who had spent their lives trying to earn love that was never going to be given freely. "Thank you for telling your story," one message read. "My stepfather's family treated me the same way for 30 years. I thought I was the only one." "I was adopted too," wrote another. "My adoptive grandmother never let me forget that I wasn't real family. Your story helped me realize that the problem was never me." And slowly, as the days passed and the media attention began to die down, I realized that something good had come from all of this pain. I had given a voice to people who had been silenced by family shame and societal expectations. I had shown that love isn't about DNA or bloodlines or meeting someone else's standards of worthiness. Love is about choice. About choosing to accept someone as they are, not as you wish they were. Rose never chose to love me, and that was her loss. not mine. A week after the interview aired, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a small jewelry box, and inside that was a delicate silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. There was a note in familiar handwriting. Amber, this was your mother's. She asked me to give it to you someday when you needed to remember how much you were loved. I'm sorry it took me so long. Mrs. Chen, I held that necklace and cried for the first time since Rose had died. Not for her, not for the family I'd lost, but for my mother, who had tried so hard to protect me from exactly what had happened. Who had loved me enough to give me her name and try to make me feel like I belonged, even knowing that Rose would never accept me as real family. The legal threats never materialized. Apparently, Robert and the others decided that pursuing criminal charges against me would only bring more negative attention to the family. The non-disclosure agreement was quietly withdrawn. I never got the inheritance I had fought for, but I realized I didn't need it anymore. Marcus and I used the money from the interview and the subsequent book deal to buy a small house outside the city. We started over, building a life based on the family we chose rather than the one we were born into. 6 months later, I got a call from an unexpected source. Amber? This is David, my cousin David, who I hadn't spoken to since the night of the celebration. David, I said carefully. How did you get this number? Maya gave it to me. Listen, I know this is probably the last thing you want to hear, but can we talk? In person? I don't think that's a good idea. Please. There are things you don't know. Things about what happened after you left the family. Things are different now. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, I barely recognized him. David had always been the golden boy of the family, successful lawyer, perfect wife, perfect kids. But the man sitting across from me looked exhausted and defeated. Thank you for coming, he said. I wasn't sure you would. What did you want to talk about? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. The family isn't the same since Rose died, he said finally. Since your interview aired and everyone learned the truth about the adoption. What do you mean? I mean, we're all looking at each other differently now, wondering what else we don't know, what other lies we've been living with. He looked up at me, and I was surprised to see tears in his eyes. Maya told us that she knew about your adoption for years and never said anything. Jason admitted that he always suspected something, but never asked questions because he didn't want to rock the boat. Linda confessed that she and the other adults had argued about telling you the truth, but Rose threatened to cut them out of the will if they did. I felt a familiar stab of pain. So everyone knew except me. Everyone was complicit, he corrected. Everyone chose their inheritance over your well-being. And now we have to live with that. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that your interview changed everything. Not just for the public, but for us. We can't pretend anymore that we were innocent bystanders in Rose's treatment of you. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. This is a check, he said, sliding it across the table. It's for $50,000. It's not the inheritance you should have gotten, but it's my share of Rose's estate. I can't keep money that was gained by excluding you. I stared at the envelope, not touching it. I don't want your money, David. It's not about what you want, he said. It's about what's right. Jason is doing the same thing. So is Maya. We're all contributing a portion of our inheritances to create a fund for you. And what does the rest of the family think about this? Some of them support it, others think we're being manipulated by guilt. But that's their problem, not ours. I looked at my cousin, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine remorse. Real recognition of the harm that had been done. David, I said quietly, I don't need your money. What I needed was for someone, anyone, to stand up for me when it mattered. To tell Rose that excluding me was wrong. To choose me over their inheritance. I know, he said, and I'm sorry. We're all sorry, but sorry doesn't fix anything, does it? No, I agreed. It doesn't. So what can we do? How do we make this right? I thought about it for a long time. You can't make it right, I said finally. What's done is done. Rose is dead, The family is broken, and I'm never going to be the person I was before all this happened. Then what do you want from us? Nothing, I said and realized I meant it. I don't want anything from any of you anymore. I just want to live my life without having to think about whether I'm good enough for people who were never going to accept me anyway. I stood up to leave, but David caught my arm. For what it's worth, he said, you were always good enough. We were just too scared and selfish to see it. I walked out of that coffee shop and never looked back, not at David, not at the envelope he'd tried to give me, not at the family that had finally learned the price of their silence, because I had learned something too. I had learned that sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. Sometimes you have to walk away from people you love in order to love yourself. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to tell the truth about who you really are, you discover that you're stronger than you ever imagined. A year later, Marcus and I got married in our backyard, surrounded by friends who chose to love us exactly as we are. No fancy cakes, no perfect bloodlines, no conditions or expectations. Just love, pure and simple and freely given. I never did get that inheritance I fought for. But I got something better. I got my self-respect. I got the truth. And I got the chance to build a new family based on choice rather than obligation. The Rose family saga became a cautionary tale, a story people told about the dangers of conditional love and the importance of accepting all children equally. But for me, it became something else entirely. It became my origin story. The story of how I stopped being the forgotten granddaughter and started being exactly who I was meant to be. And that, it turns out, was worth more than any inheritance could ever have been. Thank you for watching this. I hope my story helps anyone out there who's ever felt like they weren't good enough for their own family. Remember, your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to see it. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories, and let me know in the comments if you've ever had to make the difficult choice between family loyalty and self-respect. Until next time, take care of yourselves.